Hey guys, welcome to Alaska Rural Homestead and thanks for stopping by. Today we are going to be talking about life before the homestead and how it was for us. So moving to Alaska, we we drove up to Bellingham, Washington. My husband was a DOD firefighter at the time and got orders for Alaska. And so we drove up to Bellingham, Washington, and we got on the ferry. And if you guys ever have a chance to get on the ferry, I totally recommend it. You will they'll stop by lots of ports there, and you'll be able to get to see Juneau, Haines. You'll go through the Inside Passage. And honestly, it's like once in a lifetime cruise there, trip, and you will just love it. It will be just breathtaking. So,
very beautiful. If you like to see the dolphins and the orcas, they swim in the Inside Passage. It's actually very deep, and anyway, so you'll get to see all that. Plus, you'll get to see all of the wildlife. Depending on what time of year it is, you may even see bears along the shoreline. You'll definitely see people, places like Petersburg, Sitka, stuff like that. Really beautiful. A lot of little towns. And every time it stops, you're allowed to get off, even though it's not your stop, because they stop for quite a bit. So you get off, maybe go do a shop or something, come back on. You'll usually have about an hour and a half to get off and kind of stretch your legs. So something you might want to check into.
And you guys, we also brought our vehicle with a trailer on there. Of course, it was paid for and everything, and it is a little pricey, but it is well worth it. So another subject we're going to touch on today is jobs in Alaska. There are tons of apprenticeship programs for residents of Alaska. Once you become a resident, you can apply for apprenticeship programs.
Let me stop right there and say that these apprenticeships now may not be for everybody if you're not of the union mindset. These are union jobs, but if you could hack it, even for a little bit, it's a good place to get some training. Join the union, start as an apprentice, and they work you right up. When she came up here with me, like I said, I was a firefighter, and she decided that she wanted something to do, so she got into the apprenticeship through the Teamsters, and now she's a great truck driver.
Okay, so this was an apprenticeship program through the union. And there are several different unions here. Mine just happened to be the 959. I applied for the union through them, and they go through this where they select certain individuals for this program.
Now, once you did that, I want to add one thing for Alaska has what they call a WorkKeys program. And so once you have applied to the apprenticeship program, if you go ahead and apply for the WorkKeys, then they go ahead and they work with you to get items that you may need, like winter clothing, work boots, tools, and stuff like that. And they did that for Michelle here.
And y'all, I knew it was going to be tough, but I was ready to make a real big change in my life because even though hubby already had a job when we came up here, and I got transferred to a military post where I was working retail, I was only making $10.38 an hour. And I was just tired of the way my career was going, and I needed something new in my life, and I knew it was going to be challenging, but it was one of the best things one of the best decisions that I made, because I not only went from $10.38 an hour, I went throughout my whole training, I got paid. So I learned the skills as I was getting paid, and Also, the state of Alaska paid for all my gear, my clothing, my lodging when I went to school, my food. I mean, it was totally awesome. And so now that I've journeyed out, I have made up to probably $45 an hour, and some Davis-Bacon jobs where I make even more.
So, that being said, when I came up here, I was a DoD firefighter, and I'd also had a background as a driver. So, basically, the job on post, it wasn't paying very much. My overtime rate was $13.72 an hour, to give you an idea of how little is being paid. And so I did that for a little bit, and I had looked at my opportunities for advancement and found out that they were very limited. So I had contacted the Teamsters and said, hey, what do you have? And when I applied to them, I immediately was a journeyman because of my truck driving experience to start with. And so I started out, and this was back in 2006 at $38 an hour. And like Michelle says, the scale wage now is a lot higher. Anyways, so I did that for several years, and then I just got burnt out of driving a truck, so I even went through an apprenticeship. In fact, I'm just about finished with my operator's apprenticeship. I've got about 800 hours left. I've been doing nothing but running a crane for the last 3,000 hours. That doesn't sound like, very fun to most people or, a whole lot of work, but actually it's a lot of work, and it is a lot of fun, and it does pay really well. When I journey out, which will be in 3 more months, I will be making $50 an hour. So just to give you an idea of what the pay scale here is in Alaska, so really look into your union jobs and go from there.
And y'all, occasionally now we do go to Prudhoe Bay, Alaska in the winter. Now it can be pretty brutal. I remember working when I was an apprentice. We had to fuel a bunch of equipment, and it was negative 68 below, and I knew I just had to drive through it, but that is just something I had to work through, and if...
Well, it's just parting of getting that experience.
Yeah, that's... And so now we're going to move on to subsistence living and hunting and fishing in Alaska.
So, subsistence living, let me explain that first off. If you're in a major city, Fairbanks, North Pole, Wasilla, Palmer, someplace like that, Anchorage, there is no subsistence, quote-unquote, living because everything is within easy reach for you to get to. There's grocery stores, there's ways to get electricity and heat and fuel and stuff like that. So true subsistence living is you're out in a smaller village or a town and you're most of the time living off the grid. And what that means is no electricity, no running water, and your stores are usually quite a bit away, quite a bit of distance away. Give you an example. I did a job in Nalato, which is off of the Yukon River. It's a really nice town, native village, very beautiful. However, they had a grocery store there, and it was very limited for the stuff that you could get. Everything was super expensive. When you hear about $10 a gallon for milk, it's in a village. And so everything is either barged into this village or flown into this village. So everything's stupid expensive. So when I say subsistence, these villagers are able to go out underneath a federal permit and hunt moose or caribou or bear and fish for like king salmon, silvers, or reds. And this is what they subsist on because that is their main food supply to offset the cost of everything else that's coming in. Now, in certain towns in Alaska, like Delta Junction here, we're still considered subsistence because we're so far away from the major towns. Now, we do have a IGA shopping center here and a gas station, but they are kind of expensive. And so the state allows us as well as the federal government, to subsistence hunt for moose and caribou in certain areas, which really helps. Plus, we're allowed to subsistence fish, and we're allowed to get, so many salmon per person or per family to get us by. And it's really a nice thing to have. So.
And they still, we still have where the troopers will call us if there is a roadkill. You can get put on that list when you are a resident, and that, I believe, works throughout the whole state. And you are required, when you hit something, to let the troopers know immediately, because some of that meat will get transferred to families that really need it here in Alaska.
Or to even get donated to some of the church community centers and stuff like that, where the meat's distributed to people that just can't go out and salvage the meat.
So we're going to close this video right now. And if you have any questions or comments, please leave them, and we will try to get back to you. And like and subscribe.